let's go back now to Nigeria. About 3 months ago, President Bola Tinubu suspended Godwin Emefiele as the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria due to alleged mismanagement of his office, as well as wrong implementation of policies like the Naira redesign, the interest rate, and so on. Now, at the time, the deputy CBN governor, Folashodun Adebisi Shonubi, acted as the CBN governor pending the conclusion of the investigation investigation of Emefiele's office. However, recently, a UK-trained Nigerian banker, chartered stockbroker, and public policy maker, Olayemi Cardoso, was appointed as the new governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, although it's still awaiting, confirmation by the Senate. But that got people whispering, as what they know it to be is that the governor is still on suspension. However, according to reports, Emefiele had already tendered his resignation letter to the president, and the special advisor to the president for communication confirmed that Cardoso is now the new governor. Also, 4 deputy governors were appointed. Well, we'll get into the conversation with our guests, of course. Joining our gathering today, we have Muktar Mohammed, the CEO of Finance with Muktar. Thank you so much, Muktar, for joining us.
A pleasure for having me. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you join us as well. Now, Muktar, looking at the development, I think the first question on so many people's minds is, why was the public not made aware of this development? Now, we did know that the former CBN governor, Emefiele, was suspended at some point, but there was no further information as to whether he was going to come back or, there was going to be a new CBN governor. But all of a sudden, we hear that Cardoso has been appointed. And, a lot of people were speculating that we can't have a new CBN governor if the former one is still on suspension. So why the silence? Why the secrecy?
Well, you can say there is secrecy, but okay, there was silence. But again, there can be secrecy because what we understand was that Emefiele tendered his resignation letter.
But we're just getting to understand that now. That wasn't publicly declared. So can't we term it secrecy?
Yeah. No, you see, when it comes to that, governance in Nigeria is also something you don't want to talk about because of the way they go about their things. Because ordinarily, Emefiele, letters should be made public to everybody because it's a public servant. But again, you might get to know behind the scene that maybe he was even forced to resign because he was already having a case, and he said, okay, you know what? Give you a soft landing, you sign this resignation letter, and that is the end of it, knowing that you cannot also wear. Because I remember one of my egbon telling me, he said, when you work in the civil service is only when they want to allow you to go that they will just leave you. So by the time they dangle the paper in front of you, you definitely do the needful. So I think with a lot of controversy surrounding Emefiele, a lot of controversy. The CBN was run almost like another arm of the executive. A lot of Nigerians doesn't have sympathy for him, and I think the current presidency is capitalizing on that and doing what they think is best for Nigeria.
Okay, but then again, with all of this development, what does this say about the level of transparency in the country? Because that is a song that we have sang for the longest time. Let the people in on what's going on, but it doesn't seem to be happening. So what does this say about transparency in Nigeria?
Well, transparency, you can't say the presidents are not transparent. Because finally it made us know that, look, the CBN governor have resigned. We will have a resignation letter to that. Is it rule of law? I think so. We're not following the due process because, again, to complement what you said, after Mr. Emefiele must have resigned, that resignation letter is supposed to be sent to the National Assembly before you even appoint whoever will take over from him. So that was not done. I think it's more or less the rule of law procedures were not followed. But this is not the first time that procedure was not followed. Remember when Lamido went to court that he cannot be sacked as the CBN governor without 2/3 members of the National Assembly to approve. And yet the same thing has played out itself in Godwin Emefiele. So transparency have never been part of our governance, especially when it comes to public officers.
And is that a good thing? Doesn't that reflect badly
Definitely
on
not a
us
good
as
thing,
a
especially
nation?
for international. Yeah, it's not a good thing, especially for international market. When you know why we have what we had, and this independence of the CBN was brought about by the former president Olusegun Obasanjo, and the whole idea behind it was to make sure that you don't have political interference in the affair of the CBN, so that they will be able to do what they ought to do without having any political interference. But unfortunately, I think Emefiele tenure was the worst in terms of interference. Like I said, the CBN became a second arm, or I mean, a tool of the executive whereby they can decide to borrow money whenever they want to borrow money through the ways and means, even going exceeding their limit, and nobody could caution them. So definitely, I think it's not good for us, especially when we want to play the international space.
All right, let's take a brief look at the history of the interim or the acting CBN Governor, Olayemi Cardoso. Now, Cardoso did serve as the former chairman of Citibank Nigeria, and he was the commissioner for Lagos State Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget. So there's no questioning his experience. But we all also know that stepping into this position as the Central Bank of Nigeria governor will be no mean feat. Do you think that he's ready for that?
Adesso is ready. I mean, he runs a financial company. He's been there for. He normally present what we call, excuse me, quarterly reports about happenings in the economy. He wasn't somebody that just left and wasn't having anything to do with the economy. I think based on his statistic, then based on his appointment, I think he will turn out to be a very good appointment for the president, especially if you get to know the independence mindset that he has. And because even the president call him the headmaster, he makes sure procedures are followed. So at least we'll begin to watch if that happens, whereby we don't have a CBN that is doing direct intervention in where the commercial bank should be doing. We don't have a CBN that should be the one calling to get loan for hand from the financial banks in Nigeria. So definitely, I think we hopefully will see a CBN governor that will do the needful. But again, I have my fears because the president himself also is looking for somebody that could be able to drive the economy, and again, drive the economy via his policy. But you know that when it comes to
All right, Muktar, I think we're having...
the economy, this CBN is solely supposed to be independent in the area of monetary policies. So we don't want us to do the billing of the executive. That will not be good. The
All right, I think what...
CBN as a monetary policy commission is more or less like I mean, the
Muktar, we're having a bit of challenges with your audio. We'll wait for that to be rectified. But in the meantime, just a brief recap of what we're talking about now. The former CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele, has finally tendered his resignation letter. And from the report, according to what the report is saying, that the resignation letter was actually dropped in August. And recall that followed a series of various challenges that we had with the financial sector in Nigeria, talking about the cash scarcity, implementation of the cashless policy, the whole jam about that situation. It cost a lot of people, to lose cash at that point, and a lot of people became stranded at some point. And for some reason, the policies and reforms of the Central Bank of Nigeria was not aligning with that of the Tinubu-led administration, and there was a bit of a loggerhead there as well. Now, from what you're seeing on the screen, the former governor, CBN governor, reportedly resigned as the governor in August. CBN is yet to release an official statement about Emefiele's alleged resignation. And so that means that Cardoso's appointment also is not yet fully official. But according to what we hear, it's awaiting confirmation by the Senate. Now, Emefiele's alleged resignation ultimately paved way for the newly nominated Cardoso. And from what we also hear, he's a UK-trained financial expert. Now, I think that we have Muktar back with us, but just his voice. Muktar, can you hear us?
I can hear you clearly.
Okay, please go ahead. You were trying to say something.
So my own challenge is I hope we don't have a CBN that will become a tool of the executive because of the kind of policy that the president wants to pin through. This is the first president that is also having a special advisor on monetary policy. This is the first president that is having a special advisor on economy that is different. You normally have a special advisor of the president on economy, doing both the monetary policy and the fiscal policy. Now he has a special advisor that is on the economy that will strictly be advising the president on matters that concerns the economy. And he now has a special advisor which will be advising him on matters that have to do with monetary policy, which is good, but we must not forget that the CBN should be independent. It shouldn't be because the president wants interest rates to be low, the CBN will not dive down it without looking at the variables, whether it's going to work or not. So definitely, I think in terms of Mr. Cardoso, I believe he has all the capability to become the CBN governor. But how he goes about it is one thing that we all are waiting to see. If truly we have a CBN that is independent from the executive.
Okay, Muktar, also, the governor has his work cut out for him, there's no doubt. But it seems like he won't be working in isolation. I mean, from what we have been hearing, the president is now careful. And because of that, he will be surrounded by the likes of the finance minister, the deputy governors, and other strong forces in that sector. Do you think that will make his work easier?
Well, like I said, we need to look at what is the act of what was the act, what CBN is supposed to do. CBN is supposed to create monetary policy. CBN is supposed to act as the last resort, the last credit line of government in terms of borrowing. And CBN is also supposedly to safeguard the exchange rate, the volatility, the exchange rate. So when currency, we want to say currency in circulation, exchange rate, that's basically what the CBN is doing. This is different from what the economy is all about. The economy is all encompassing, as we have the minister, coordinating minister of the economy. But the CBN is central on monetary policy. So their works are different. And sometimes, like I was trying to say, sometimes it's like the CBN itself is the architect. I mean, the Minister of Finance is the architect that is building the house, come up with the drawing and everything. The CBN becomes the structural engineer. And you know that if you are building a house, the structural engineer and the architect don't agree in a lot of things, but at the end of the day, they agree for the movement of the common goal to have a good house. So the same thing I'm expecting to happen between the current minister and the yet to be appointed CBN governor. Remember also that these both men were commissioners of Lagos State. One was commissioner of finance, one was commissioner for budget and plan. So they work together, so we will not have the problem. And what we have been canvassing for thus far is when we have a synergy in what the political side is bringing and what the monetary policy is trying to achieve, and so that we can have a synergy that will not bring down our economy, but bring up productivity. Now, the challenge we all have with the current, the outgoing CBN executives, because they always just do what I call copy and paste. Because America is hiking rates because of inflation, you hike rates here because of inflation. But you have forgotten that the variables are different when it comes to the American economy and the Nigerian economy. So we need to let Mr. Cardoso to know that you don't have to do copy and paste. You should begin to think of bringing out a homegrown monetary policy that will affect the generality of Nigeria.
Okay, Muktar, there is no doubt that the incoming governor will inherit a lot of challenges in the financial sector. But one thing that is common with Africans is they keep counting the days once a new person is appointed into position. And now every government has 5 years to prove themselves, 5 years to function initially. There's so many challenges, the finances, national revenue, Naira value currently underwater and all of that. How long do you think it will be before we start seeing real changes?
We did not get to this place overnight. So we don't think we should leave it overnight. First and foremost, I think the CBN governor will need to settle down. But unfortunately, he's not being thrown into the murky water because having Muktar and two very big monster inflation that caused by monetary policy decisions. The inflation that are caused by executive decision. This one have the monetary policy decision involved and the executive decision also involved. That's the area of inflation. Then we have the volatility of the Naira that is strictly caused by the CBN policy of withdrawing of license of bureau de change without creating market for those people that will need to patronize bureau de change to be able to continue to patronize a claimless market which will act as a competitor with bureau de change and would have brought the rate down or stabilize the rate that will begin to attract foreign direct investors and foreign investors. So it's something that we really need to really sit down and say, Mr. Governor, what is the immediate thing you need to do? The immediate thing you need to do is to see how he can bring down exchange rate with whatever policy statement he needs to do. And secondly, the most important thing he has to do is to bring corporate governance into CBN. You, CBN, cannot be a regulator, regulating banks, making sure that banks present their annual report, their quarterly report, and yet CBN does not present their own report. It has taken them 7 years to present one report for 7 years. That is not good enough. That is the two major areas I think it should really look at and see how it can drop a policy that makes that place so open and be able to drive the physical policy via liberalization of that side.
All right. Now, on a personal level, Muktar, I mean, you are the CEO of Finance with Muktar. So looking at it from your own perspective, what do you hope that the country can achieve with this new appointment?
I mean, you don't need to go for the market is responding positively to his appointment, to his nomination, not even his appointment yet. When I mean the market, the stock market, the financial stocks are doing well. So that shows that they have confidence in him. Same thing with me. But like I said, one thing I want him to address is the volatility of the exchange rate so that we have stable exchanges will begin to attract investors into our economy. That's one thing I want him to do. And secondly, I want him to bring corporate governance into the activity of CBN. If he does that, the economy naturally takes a life of its own, and then we'll move with that.
All right. Now, one final question would be, we hear that Cardoso's nomination has not been confirmed yet. How long will that take before it is?
I can assure you, the National Assembly is a rough term as it starts. So I'm sure the day the president takes that nomination to the National Assembly within 48 hours, I'm sure he will be confirmed.
Okay. Also, about very quickly about the other deputy governors, what exactly will their role be?
Well, the deputy governor is to help the governor. Most of them have four deputy governors. That will have to do with some of them work in the area of relating with the banks. Some of them will also work in the area of monetary policy. Some are in the area of making sure that the city that so they are all different. I think the governor will be able to work with them because their assignments are all different. But again, the box stops in the table of the governor.
Okay. There's one more concern. Now, it says that the Central Bank of Nigeria Act allows the central bank governor to resign by giving at least 3 months' notice in writing to the president. But we did hear that the former governor resigned in August. What's the situation there?
Like what I said, I'm going to say it again. I don't think this resignation was done in good faith. That's the thing I have to say for now. I think it is a resignation that one might be forced to do, or he was at the process of doing, but he was forced to go do it immediately. Remember, there was a time that there was cry that he was trying to leave the country at a particular time to go and study in the UK. So for now, I'm not upon the decision, I'm not upon the decision. I can't show what that transpired.
All right, Muktar. So having said all of this, we can be sure that the finance sector is not in Nigeria is in good hands?
I can confidently say that it's in good hands. Because what we have, let me tell you what I'm so excited about the financial sector. We have three key people that are all financial people. We have Tokumba Hill as the House Committee on Finance and Economy in the Senate. Then we have the Minister for Finance and the Coordinating Minister, also a financial person. And then we now have the Governor of CBN, also a financial person. I think these three appointments have shown that the President knows what he's doing, especially the area of appointments that have to do with the economy.
All right, the CEO of Finance with Muktar Mohammed. Thank you so much for joining us on Village Square Africa.
My pleasure for having me. Thank you.